Hello, my friends. Welcome to a global pop edition of 30 Albums for 30 Years. Today we will be discussing the music of Italy. I am your host, Jay Sweet. We begin with a song, the Tarantella, the very famous folk dance that is associated with southern Italy. Musically, the rhythm is upbeat. The name is interesting. It's associated with the bite of a wolf spider or a tarantula, which leads to a hysterical condition known as tarantism. The dance began as a ritual in which performers would pretend to be spider bite victims, and they would dance in a convulsing kind of a style. The tradition somehow morphed into a stately courtship dance, often danced by couples. It's short in duration, graceful and elegant, and features this characteristic music called the tarantella. Let's now talk about early Italian history. The history of Italy is rich, and it's complex, and it spans thousands of years. Italy's history can be traced back to ancient times when it was home to various indigenous cultures and tribes. The Roman Republic, established in 509 BC, evolved into the Roman Empire, which at its height controlled vast territories in Europe, Africa, and Asia. The Roman Empire significantly contributed to new innovations in law, engineering, architecture, and culture. It eventually faced internal strife, economic troubles, and external threats, leading to its collapse in 476 AD. In the late Middle Ages, cities like Venice, Florence, and Genoa gained prominence as centers for trade, art, and culture. The Papal States, under the control of the Roman Catholic Church, also played a significant role in Italian politics. As for music, well, in the church it was Gregorian chant, music sung by monks. And this was the standard bearer for all sacred music within Italy and throughout Europe for quite some time, Gregorian chant. As for secular music not associated with the church, during the Renaissance period, composers like Francesco Landini and Guillaume Dufay composed secular music, including madrigals and chansons. Those are vocal pieces. Now, during the Renaissance, which is like the 14th century through the 17th century, Italy was the birthplace of the Renaissance, a cultural and intellectual movement that revived interest in art, literature, and science. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, these were significant names during this period. It was a fantastic period for art and innovation, the Italian Renaissance period. Let's talk for a moment about opera. In the later half of the Renaissance period, opera became a dominant form of entertainment throughout Italy. The first known opera comes from Jacopo Peri. It's called Daphne, and it premiered in Florence in 1597. In fact, it's important to know that Italy is considered the birthplace of opera. The most notable early opera, the one that set a new standard, was Claudio Monteverdi's opera Orfeo, which was written in 1609. It's still performed today. It's the earliest opera still performed today. And Italian composers during this period were also significantly contributing to instrumental music and introducing new musical forms. The Baroque period is generally dated from 1700 to 1850. It's a time of great musicianship and artistic achievements. The most notable Baroque composer from Italy is Antonio Vivaldi, born in 1678, lives till 1751. Antonio Vivaldi from Venice was one of the true masters of the Baroque era. As with most composers and musicians of the day, his father was also a noted musician who was employed as a violinist at St. Mark's Cathedral. He also managed opera houses, which would later help in the presentation of Antonio Vivaldi's works. Vivaldi's early education consisted of both musical and theological studies. In 1703, Antonio Vivaldi was ordained as a priest and nicknamed the Red Priest because of his red hair color. Now, due to his asthma, Vivaldi could not consistently perform his priestly duties, and he left the priesthood within a year. At this point, he put all of his efforts into a career as a composer and musician. He quickly found an appointment at a Venetian all-girls orphanage. The orphanage was known to have a fantastic orchestra and choir that performed public concerts every Sunday. Although he traveled frequently, Vivaldi held that position for about 15 years. In 1713, Vivaldi began to write several well-received operas, producing between 45 to 50 operas. He received many commissions, not because he was great, because, well, he was, but also because he had an incredible ability to write quickly, and even wrote an entire opera in only 5 days. That's unheard of. His operas were very popular in their day, but Vivaldi's operas are now not as widely celebrated as his nearly 450 concertos and other instrumental works. Many of Vivaldi's most notable works are concertos, as I mentioned, and particularly solo concertos, which is a piece of music written for a single soloist pitted against an orchestra. Vivaldi was a masterful violinist, so naturally many of his concertos featured him as a violinist, but he also wrote concertos for cello and flute and a whole bunch of other instruments as well. Several of Vivaldi's concertos are what we call programmed works, which is music that depicts a story or an image, and they had descriptive titles and in some cases storylines. His instrumental writing revealed a sense of freshness in melody, rhythm, form, and a skillful treatment for soloists. While he was well respected for most of his life, Vivaldi's popularity declined in his final years, and he died in poverty in Vienna in 1741. After his death, Vivaldi and his music were all but forgotten, but a 1950s revival of Baroque music brought forth a new interest in Vivaldi. Today, he is widely celebrated as one of the most significant contributors to Baroque music. Other notable Italian Baroque composers include Alessandro Scarlatti and Arcangelo Corelli. One of Vivaldi's most celebrated works is the Concerto for Violin and String Orchestra. That's Opus number 8. Many know it as the Four Seasons. Antonio Vivaldi's Four Seasons Concerto is a 4-part work, with each section depicting a new season. As with most concertos, Vivaldi's movements are separated by a fast, slow, and then another fast movement. So it's fast, slow, fast. For each movement, Vivaldi added several lines of poetry into the score to represent imagery to match the programmed concerto's music. The score was completed in 1725 and is easily Vivaldi's most recognizable work. Of all the movements, Spring is the most celebrated, and this particular performance features the fantastic Israeli violinist and conductor Itzhak Perlman. Before enjoying movement number 1 of Spring, it's important to read Vivaldi's poem that's associated with this movement. Here it is. Festive spring has arrived. The birds salute it with their happy songs, and the brooks caressed by little zephyrs flow with a sweet murmur. The sky is covered with a black mantle, and thunder and lightning announce a storm. When they are silent, the birds return to sing their lovely song. So listen for bird songs and the violent storm. This is Spring, movement number 1 by Vivaldi. Enjoy. Italy remained a cultural center during the classical music era. That's an era that dates from about 1750 to 1820. Luigi Boccherini and Domenico Cimarosa were important figures in the classical period, but are rarely discussed amongst the classical masters like Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. In fact, Mozart spent much of his career in Italy and was influenced by Italian opera and helped to advance the form. The next major cultural period in music is the Romantic period, which dates from 1820 till 1900. During this time, Italy continued to be a major center for opera. Giuseppe Verdi and Giacomo Puccini composed some of the most celebrated operas in history during this time. Italian opera became internationally renowned, and Italian composers were pivotal to the Romantic era movement. Let's now talk about the great opera composer Giuseppe Verdi, born in 1813. Verdi never pretended to be a learned musician, and he showed little inclination as a child that he would develop into a musical colossus. He did, in fact, display some talent, but he was not a virtuoso by any means. His father was not a musician. He was an innkeeper and a grocer. So when Giuseppe was 10, he was sent to live with a cobbler friend in Busseto named Antonio Baresi. Baresi treated him well and got him the best musical training that he could find. He then was sent to Milan to study at a conservatory. However, because of his limited training, he was not accepted. So for 2 years, he remained in Milan and studied with private instructors. After his training, he returned to Busseto and married Baresi's daughter, Margherita. Verdi found success early in life. His first opera, 1939, was called Alberto, and it was well received. Then sadly, tragedy was met. His wife and his 2 children died. Then his second opera failed, and he lost faith in his career decision and his abilities. His next opera, Nabucco, did very well, and it made him famous and revitalized his early career. Several more hit operas followed, some that were lesser-known hits, and there were some failures in there as well. But he was looked upon at this time as a national Italian treasure. He was very much aware of the public and their tastes, and his librettos, which is the storyline, were not overly sophisticated. He said the following: "The public would stand for anything but boredom." That was his motto. And many of his librettos are considered kind of the equivalent of soap operas today, kind of trash. And in fact, most likely that's where we get the term soap opera. In the early 1850s, Verdi was on quite a run and presented several operas which are considered more mature works, somewhat controversial, but widely popular. This includes Rigoletto, Il Trovatore, and La Traviata. At this time, he was living with Giuseppina Strepponi, a soprano singer. They lived together, unmarried, which was an outrage amongst the Italian public. He was also a known atheist, and for that, he was also harshly criticized. Streppina and Verdi eventually married in 1859. Verdi changed his style after those 3 successful operas, and his work became more artistic and ambitious. This includes operas like Aida and Don Carlo. Verdi was known for using unusual characters in his opera. Rigoletto is about a cursed, hunchback jester who works for a womanizing duke. The story includes a failed murderous plot that leads to the death of Rigoletto's daughter. It's a case of mistaken identity. The most famous aria from the opera is La Donna e il Mobile. The song is sang by the Duke, who gives his thoughts on women. He believes women to be fickle. Singing this one is Luciano Pavarotti, the great opera singer. Before we listen, let's learn a little bit about Pavarotti. Luciano Pavarotti is arguably the most famous opera singer of all time. Born in 1935 outside of Modena, Italy, his father was a banker, and his mother worked in a cigar factory. Pavarotti had dreams of becoming a football goalkeeper before turning to serious vocal training at the age of 19. He nearly quit singing when he developed a nodule on his vocal cords, which eventually went away in the 1960s, and then he began singing professionally at several opera houses and continued to gain popularity throughout the decade. A major breakthrough came in 1972 when he sang at the Metropolitan Opera House. He was so nervous at that performance that he held a handkerchief throughout to handle perspiration, and ever since, he has kept it as a prop on stage during solo performances as a coping mechanism. Later in life, Pavarotti had often been criticized for canceling performances with little notice. Pavarotti holds 2 Guinness World Records, one for receiving the most curtain calls during a performance, that's 165 curtain calls, and one for having the best-selling classical album, Correas, Domenico, and Pavarotti in concert. The name of that group was the Three Tenors. Here is Luciano Pavarotti singing La Donna Mobile from the hit opera Rigoletto. I hope you enjoy. In 1861, Italy became united, and Verdi was thrilled with Italian independence and became a part of the first Italian parliament. By 1870, Sicily, Naples, and Rome officially became part of Italy. Verdi initially took the job very serious, but eventually grew frustrated with politics. In 1879, he presented Otello, the greatest of his tragic operas, and in 1893, after years of work, he completed Falstaff, another major achievement. Now, because his work dealt more with characters who were not mystical or mythical and were scandalous, critics were often harsh and favored works by other opera composers. However, the general public loved him. Verdi left an incredible legacy and is possibly the most famous opera composer of all time. His operas widely appeal to the mass public still, and he dominated Italian opera throughout the latter part of the 19th century. His most popular works are Nabucco, Rigoletto, Aida, Otello, and Falstaff. During World War I and World War II, Italy was on the wrong side of history. They were part of the Axis powers and lost both wars. Benito Mussolini's fascist regime came to power in 1922, and this led to an authoritarian government and major worldwide destruction and death. Bella Ciao, which means goodbye beautiful, is an Italian folk song from the late 19th century, sung by female workers named Modinas, who worked in the rice fields in northern Italy. They would spend their workdays with bare feet in water up to their knees, and their backs bent continuously. The atrocious working conditions, long hours, and very low pay led to constant dissatisfaction. The song was then repurposed as an anthem of the Italian resistance movement that opposed Nazism and fascism. The lyrics are as such: "One morning I awaken, goodbye beautiful. One morning I awaken, and I found the invader. Oh, partisan, carry me away. Goodbye beautiful. Oh, partisan, carry me away. Goodbye beautiful, because I feel death approaching. And if I die as a partisan, goodbye beautiful. And if I die as a partisan, then you must bury me. Bury me up in the mountains. Goodbye beautiful. Bury me up in the mountains, under the shade of a beautiful flower. And all those who shall pass, goodbye beautiful, and all those who shall pass will tell me, what a beautiful flower. This is the flower of partisan. Goodbye beautiful. This is the flower of the partisan who died for freedom." The version we're about to hear comes from Giovanna da Fani from 1962. The version is unique in that it only includes a solo voice and guitar. Other versions are more heavily orchestrated. Goodbye, beautiful. Bella ciao. Born in 1929, Domenico Modugno was an Italian singer, actor, and later a politician. He acted in 44 movies and produced 2. In 1984, he suffered a severe stroke and was partially paralyzed, which ended his singing and film career. Working for the rights of disabled people, he was elected to Italian Parliament in 1987. He did return to the music scene briefly in 1992, but died of a heart attack in 1994. Nel Blu dipinto di Blu, or Volare, was written by Modugno and was released in 1958. In 1959, he became the first Grammy winner ever for Record of the Year and Song of the Year. It was the first year of the Grammys. Combined sales of Volare topped 18 million copies. The song came to him after a vivid dream. In the song's lyrics, he talks about his feelings when he is with a lover. Dean Martin, who spoke fluent Italian, recorded an alternate version of the song, alternating between Italian and English lyrics in 1960. Another Italian-American singer, Bobby Rydell, also had a hit with the song in 1960. Volare means to fly. All right, so let's talk about some Italian pop music. Mina is a post-war Italian singer and actor born in 1940. She was most popular in the 1960s and 1970s and was known for her large vocal range and for helping to shape the image of an independent Italian woman. She was also known for her occasional screaming vocals, wild gestures, and body shakes. In 1983, Mina was banned from TV and radio because of her pregnancy and relationship with a married actor, Corrado Pani. And the ban did little to stifle her career. Mina remained extremely popular. Italian Americans have had a huge impact on American music. Some names include Frank Sinatra, John Bon Jovi, Lady Gaga, Madonna, Frankie Valli, Tony Bennett, Louis Prima, Rosemary Clooney, Bruce Springsteen, Bobby Darin, and many, many more. The Italian-American musician who probably most celebrated his Italian heritage is famous actor and singer Dino Paul Crocetti, better known as Dean Martin. That's Amore is a song that first appeared in the soundtrack of the Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis comedy film, The Caddy, released by Paramount Pictures on August 10, 1953. Lewis commissioned Warren and Brooks to write songs for Martin to sing in the movie. According to Lewis, he personally paid them $30,000 and secretly, hoping one would be a hit for Dean Martin. In the film, the song is performed mainly by Martin, with Lewis joining in at times. That's Amore was one of the many songs from the early 50s that helped to rehabilitate Italy's image as a land of magic and romance after World War II. Take notice of the accordion and the mandolin on this track, 2 traditional instruments associated with Italian traditional music. That's Amore. Nessuno means nobody, and it's a 1959 Italian song composed by Antonietta de Simone and Adelio Capotasti. Ignored by the public in its original version, the song became commercially successful thanks to a more rock and roll version recorded by Mina. The lyrics are basically about how nobody can tear a love apart. The song shows the influence of early American rock and roll on Italian culture. The lyrics are as such: nobody, I swear to you, nobody, neither the destiny can separate us, because this love that the sky gives us will always live. Nessuno. Laura Pausini is an Italian singer who rose to fame in the mid-1990s. She has released 14 studio albums and recorded songs in Italian, Spanish, English, Portuguese, German, Latin, Catalan, Neapolitan, Romagnol, and Sicilian. She has sold over 70 million records. One More Time is a song by popular 1980s songwriter and singer Richard Marx, which he wrote for Laura Pausini. Pausini's version was originally released in 1999 for the movie Message in a Bottle. It's Pausini's most known song that was sung in English. Andrea Bocelli is a world-renowned tenor vocalist known for his crossover appeal and blending opera and pop music. Bocelli was born with congenital glaucoma. During a soccer match when he was 12, he was hit in the face with the soccer ball, which left him totally blind. He then began singing in bars, winning singing contests, and eventually recording. Since 1994, he has sold 75 million records. He has had worldwide crossover appeal. Simply put, Bocelli is recognized as one of the finest voices for the past several decades. Conti Parito, or Time to Say Goodbye, is an Italian song written by Francesco Sartori and Lucio Quarantotto. It was first performed by Bocelli in 1995. A second version of the song with English soprano Sarah Brightman singing was later released, and it sold 12 million copies. The track ranks as one of the best-selling singles ever. The lyrics celebrate how happy the singer is and the company of his beloved, but suffers terribly when the two are apart. Caparezza is Michele Salvemini. Born in southern Italy, Caparezza began his career as a break-dancing singer. In 2000, he became recognized for his ability to rap. His outspoken lyrics talk about social causes. His music is known for its unique beats and his blending of live instrumentation along with samples and American hip-hop. Vieni a Ballar in Puglia is a 2008 song by Caparezza. According to callmefred.com, the protagonist asks his listeners where they like to go dancing, and he suggests that they all go to Puglia. However, he also warns of the environmental and social issues in the region, which includes pollution and mafia exploitation of workers. Despite these warnings, he still encourages people to come and dance, but reminds them to be aware of their surroundings, as dangers may lurk. Måneskin is an Italian rock band that was formed in Rome in 2016. The group became known for their performances on Italian versions of X Factor, the TV show, and their impressive win at the 2021 Eurovision Song Contest. Their 3 solo records have sold incredibly. The group received their first Grammy in the Best New Artist category at the 2023 Grammy Awards. As of 2022, Måneskin has sold an estimated 40 million copies worldwide and garnered 4 billion streams. Beggin' is a song first released as a single by the American band The Four Seasons in 1962. It initially charted at number 16 in the US. The song became popular in the Northern Soul scene in the United Kingdom in the 1970s. It's been covered multiple times. But Maneskin has the most recent and most popular version. In fact, it's the group's most popular song to date. Check it out. It's a rocker. Beggin'. All right, my friends, we only really scratched the surface, but thank you for taking this journey into the magical world of Italian music with me. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you continue to listen. For more information on the program, go to 30albumsfor30years.com. Have a wonderful day, and together, let's keep this music alive. Peace.